4 o'clock. He will keep trying, but on the other hand, Andrew Johnson knows that the sensible thing at this stage is to let him have his head.
And indeed a new side of Andrew Johnson seen in this race here today. He's been a scratcher all year. He's got on that big Yamaha with which he's won the Unlimited Championship, and he's been flat out, but here he's been a model of control. And here he comes into the pits. Andrew Johnson to hand over to Wayne Gardner.
With 55 minutes of the race remaining. Peter Malloy directing him in. Wayne Gardner waiting. And at the 5-hour mark, their lead was 3 laps, very nearly 4, over bike 1. The Neil Chivers, John Pace, what a beautiful change. Visor into place, 55 minutes of hard, furious work for Wayne Gardner, 21 years old from Wollongong, lashes up the hill, actually not far behind Alan Hales. Went up there. Then the 750 class bike, Alan Blanco, Michael Thean, number 19.
13.7 seconds the pit stop, so a very quick one for Wayne Gardner, now back in the saddle.
And at the 5-hour mark, there were 264 laps completed, indicating a race distance, if the wet had continued, of around 317 laps. That'll now probably go just over 320, making it still the second shortest distance ever in the Castrol 6-hour due to the 4.5 hours of rain. Hales on bike 6, sharing it with Hiscock, is in 3rd place and has the potential of having a real battle with Chivers and John Pace on bike 1. Pace, of course, has done his 4 hours, so it's Chivers all the way now on that bike. And in behind, 4th place and leading the 750 class, Stephen Trinder, David Peterson on the Suzuki number 18. Here's Neil Chivers, last year's winner. He's riding on bike 1 at the moment, looking back there, but he's holding 2nd place, but being chased by the man in 3rd place and with whom he shared victory last year. There he goes in the other yellow outfit, Alan Hales over the top. That is 2nd and 3rd place bike over the top of the hill as Hales resolutely chases his former teammate.
Hales has been pulling in Chivers by 2 seconds a lap over the last 5 laps, and look at him now. He's just out after blood. He wants to get into 2nd position. He said to me in the pits earlier that there is no team loyalty between these 2 riders, that as far as he's concerned, he wants to come 2nd, and if he can, 1st even now. And look how much he's closed up the gap even then. These are the people who won last year's Castrol 6-hour, and there goes
2nd
Alan
place.
Hales into 2nd place. Neil Chivers relegated to 3rd.
Desperately determined, up 1 place. That bike was in 13th position when Alan Hales got on it 4.5 hours ago at the end of the 1st hour, and has almost, well, no chance of catching the lead Honda bike number 5 that has a 2-lap margin on him with just 35.5 minutes to go.
Last year in the Castrol 6-hour motorcycle race, Dennis Neal threw 2nd place away on the last lap. There's more than half an hour remaining in the race. Therefore, Wayne Gardner is in jeopardy. Alan Hales is in 2nd place, which means that if something happens to Wayne Gardner, it's Alan Hales.
It's 2 laps between the 2 of them. And so when Hales overtakes him, he has brought it down to less than 1. There he goes. He's down. Alan Hales in 2nd place is off. Complete commitment to trying to overtake people and to get up. He did this 2 years ago. He threw the bike away.
There he goes.
And
he's gone through Gardner on the outside, and he's just too far out on that corner, and he's gone.
Well, Alan Hales, the same sort, frankly, of stupidity, I think, that he showed 2 years ago, threw the race away when he was 1.5 laps in the lead. He had a certain 2nd place there, and now he's into the pits. Alan Hales He had the most enormous confidence before the start of this race with David Hiscock, and I think that confidence and the unbelievability of not being in first place at any stage in this race is what drove him on. Let's see how much damage is done. 2 years ago, he blamed Roger Hales up in the loop, and a while later, when he saw our film of it, he realised it was his own fault, and he's done it again. That means that... look at the bars. The left side is no longer there. Broken. And that means that in third place now, Dennis Neal.
1.5 hours ago, Alan Hales, last year's race winner, went out for his second stint on the bike. At that time, the GSX Suzuki was in 11th place. He took it from 11th to 2nd place, but just after taking 2nd place, he lost it. What happened, Alan?
Well, the situation, you know the situation, we were way down, we were going for a break, it was all or nothing. I was passing left riders as I came to them. I wasn't giving anyone any grace. I couldn't afford the time, and I just went in a little bit too tight behind a couple of guys who sort of slowed up a little bit more than I figured, and I had to touch a bit more front brake. It's still a little bit damp over there, and down she went. It didn't really do much damage other than breaking the handlebars, which is a real bummer, because we would have been able to get up with a loss of probably 10 seconds and still had a go.
Well, that surely shows the competitive nature, even though it was between two Suzuki bikes for 2nd place.
Well, we weren't after 2nd, we were going for 1st. We were, I think, a minute and 30 seconds down, and I was catching the leader at roughly 2 seconds a lap, and anything can happen in half an hour, so we were having a go to win.
That's a fairly optimistic approach.
It's the only way to go.
Well, Alan, what difference did it make overall with all that wet weather for the first 2/3 of the race?
Well, we lost a lot of time. Dave couldn't come to grips with the wet weather conditions, and it's just an unfortunate thing. We lost quite a bit of time there, and you know, we just had no other choice but to go out there and go as fast as we could and hope for the best. And we're not disappointed. We're happy with the performance. You know, we'll be back next year.
Well, congratulations on a very competitive ride in the later half of the race anyway, Alan. And with coming up to 300 laps now, let's pick up the race position.
Well, if that's bike number 28, it's Dave Hiscock's brother, Neville Hiscock's Glenn Taylor down in the 750 class. That's just out of the Dunlop loop before Mazda corner. And so the Hiscock family coming to grief within a few minutes of each other, and in fact 25.5 minutes remaining in this Castrol 6-hour, an eventful race and a most testing, challenging one for riders as the race leader on 5 goes through in close company with number 1 in 2nd place.
The Hiscock bike, of course, was lying 8th in class at the time, and there's the race leader, Wayne Gardner. How close did Alan Hales come to bringing Wayne Gardner down in that incident? He was passing Gardner at the time. Gardner was right on his back wheel when he came down, and that crash could have been absolutely disastrous, bringing down 1st and 2nd places. Wayne Gardner's heart must still be palpitating.
In behind Gardner is number 1, the Neil Chivers John Pace bike. And you saw there the maturity of the younger than Alan Hales, Neil Chivers. Chivers has done nowhere near as much racing, although he's a very experienced rider. Some 4 years younger than Alan Hales, but he wasn't worried about Hales going past. Let him go and set his own pace. And the wisdom of that is shown by the situation at this stage. And equally, the tremendous maturity of this Wollongong rider, Wayne Gardner, on number 5, who's done the major part of it, of the riding and putting bike 5 into 1st place, but been so ably supported by the Victorian Andrew Johnson.
Gardner knows Chivers is there now. He takes a security look over his shoulder, sees him in the background, and is aware that he's got the 2nd placed motorcycle in the event near enough to him to be dangerous. Not on the same lap, not nearly on the same lap, but the presence of the bike near him is enough to make him terribly wary.
To the riders, it's a challenge, one man against another. But to the manufacturers, it's a battle for sales and for prestige. And when this race was coming up, Suzuki decided that they needed to do work on their bike to make it more competitive. as originally fitted, it had a smaller tank and alloy wheels with a 17-inch diameter rear wheel. And after testing, Alan Hales said, this was about 6 months ago, he would prefer a wire wheel for the less weight and also the lower gyroscopic forces, so that it was easier to throw around Amaru Park, and he wanted 1 inch bigger diameter, 18 inch. And the Suzuki factory in Japan brought out the model to comply with the race rules that 100 of them be sold and registered in Australia, and that's the machine that's presently running. They're lapping Chivers in 58 seconds, and we see then Dennis Neal, who's in 3rd place now. And this, of course, is the other bike that's come because of the 6 hour, and there's Neal trying hard too. All of them reveling somewhat in good adhesion, but trying the limits of that to the absolute extreme. This Honda 1100 was the machine that the Honda factory in Japan, after renting the Amaru Park circuit, having it guarded by security guards in a private test session with Dennis Neal and others, and keeping it away from all prying eyes, used a Suzuki, which they bought themselves, then flew the Honda back to Japan, did the mods, took Dennis Neal over there for testing, produced this bike, 1,000 of them for the world. 110 came to Australia, and although there was only one of them in the first 10 some hours ago, they are now lying 1st and 3rd, Dennis Neal holding 3rd.
Over the top of the hill, Dennis Neal feeling out the track there, putting all the 115 horsepower of that big Honda down now on a dry track. There are still just a couple of patches of wet around, and the riders have to be careful, because the last thing they need to do is think they have the security of a dry track beneath them, only to pick up a wet, slippery patch which would send them right off.
Although the Honda claims more power than the Suzuki, around the 115 brake horsepower, Suzuki are a bit cautious about claiming power for their bike, but it's interesting that on the same dynamometer, the rear wheel of a Honda delivers 88 brake horsepower and the Suzuki 91, and it's got much more in the mid-range.
And there's the leader of the 750cc class, Steve Trinder, sharing with the South African champion Dave Peterson. This is Team Superstition. Steve Trinder is roughly unshaven beneath that face helmet. He does not shave 3 days before a meeting. When asked why, he said many years ago he was clean shaven and he used to crash. Then one day he forgot to shave and he won the race. So since then he religiously does not shave for 3 days before the meeting, which he says always makes him look rough on the victory dais, but he'd rather be rough shaven on the victory dais than clean shaven in the pits. His co-rider Dave Peterson brought with him from South Africa his lucky socks. They're holy, they look like golfer's socks, +4s, but he wears them in every race, and he has done so for the last 3 years. They got wet this morning in the rain that started to fall before the meeting. It didn't matter to him, he pulled them on wet. He'd rather ride uncomfortably than ride without his good luck charm.
That's a bit like Alan Jones' holy underpants, which he's been using for years. They're now so holy that all he can do is carry them in his kit bag, but he still does.
And there he goes, Steve Trinder, the current 500cc Australian Grand Prix champion, riding an immaculate race today on the Suzuki GS 750, on which he holds a 1-lap lead on the Rodney Brown Len Willing bike, the Kawasaki 750E, which is in 2nd position in the 750cc class.
20 minutes to go now before the finish of this very eventful Castrol 6 hour. That's the next placed bike in 5th place. 5th place outright.
Lenny Willing at the helm at this stage. He's the younger brother of Warren Willing, the former Australian champion, who went overseas and was tragically very, very badly injured at a race in Ireland last year. Warren's in the pits today running this team for his young brother Len. And Willing accelerates up the inside there, undertaking a braking duel with the Murray Hill Trevor Discom Yamaha XJ650 and winning it.
It's interesting that this year either Honda or Suzuki have got to win the race for only the 2nd time, because Triumph, Honda, BMW, Yamaha and Suzuki have all won this race once. Only Kawasaki more than once, and in fact dominated it for a 5-year period. And it very much looks as though Honda is set to take the glory. But then there's so much resting on Wayne Gardner now in the saddle on 5, and who of course had Andrew Johnson sharing the bike with him. But in the 750 class, all the manufacturers were in there. Honda, Suzuki, Yamaha and Kawasaki. The Yamahas have never really been in it, and the class at the moment being dominated by Suzuki, being followed by Kawasaki in second place.
Kawasaki's big hope, the Jim Budd Team Kawasaki entry, went on to 2 cylinders 1.5 hours into the event, and they've been plugging on 2 cylinders ever since. They've been into the pits quite a number of times to try to rectify the problem, but team manager Neville Doyle says that it would take 15 minutes to do a proper examination, and he'd rather keep the bike out there even though it's only running on half its horsepower. Neil Shivers again.
And second position. Around 58 seconds now, some 8 to 10 seconds faster than their wet weather times. 5 gears, 4 valves per cylinder, chain drive, a remarkable motorcycle, $3,500 worth, with which the bike will carry you, if you can find a spot to do it legally, which of course you can't on the road, to 225 kilometres an hour at Bathurst on the long straight there at Easter, doing somewhere around 235 in stock standard condition. But on this circuit, they don't get into top gear. 4th gear only, up the hill. 3rd gear then here. 3rd through here, and a difficult job on the Suzuki, trying to balance it under acceleration to keep the engine up off the ground, and even if you get into a slide you can't roll it off because it might dig in and kick out. So it's a most precariously balanced situation.
Picks up 4th cog for that curve, and now powering it on down into Honda corner where he goes back. 3rd, now 2nd gear, cranks it right over and then cracks it wide open for the short Phillips straight down to Winfield corner. Back to 2nd gear again as he paws on the picks now, using all the braking power that he's not been able to use in the wet. Back up now, taking 3rd gear for Breville corner and then coming back onto the main straight. And Neil Shivers' flying lap, a 59-second lap, so not quite as quick as he perhaps could be going, but nonetheless quite spectacular for this time of the afternoon. Certainly all the riders must be reveling in the fact that after the rain earlier today, they've got very fresh motorcycles for the closing stages. Normally at this time of day, they're nursing the bikes, trying to keep the rubber on the tyres, trying to keep the bike intact. Instead, all of them now are able to crank the bikes wide open. And certainly that's what Shivers and Wayne Gardner in the lead are doing.
Wayne Gardner's lead, 3 laps, 304 laps completed some few minutes ago. And here he is. Keep it together, because Wayne Gardner, you deserve victory. You've ridden superbly in the rain. You showed maturity when Hales and others have tried to rattle you in the latter part of the race. Peter Malloy has done some superb work, not only preparing the bike, but managing the team, and I might say standing in awe of the talents of this young man. And Mentor Motorcycles, of course, supplied the bike for them, and back the superbike that Wayne Gardner rides, and that we'll be seeing in the 4-race Swan series that ABC TV will be showing in November and December.
15 minutes to go, 16 laps for Wayne Gardner. Each one of them will seem an eternity.
And the bike number 6 out again with the broken handlebar rectified in 8th place, 295 laps covered, so he's out and still in there.
Peter Malloy, the builder of this machine, first entered motorcycle racing back in 1976 when he was approached by Team Avon to prepare the 900 Kawasaki for Jim Budd and Roger Hayes. At that stage it was unheard of to have a professional engine builder go into a Castrol 6-hour bike. But Malloy did it, and it resulted in a win in 1976 for Budd and Hayes, and then they backed up again in 1978 with the Yamaha XS 1100, again prepared by Malloy. So Peter Malloy today going for his 3rd Castrol 6-hour victory as a bike tuner and as a team manager.
And somewhat more successful for him than his run at Bathurst with the Bob Morris Falcon.
And there's Dave Hiscock now back on the damaged bike 6, right in the middle of the pack with Ron Haslam right behind him. Now Dave Hiscock is magic in the dry, not that quick in the wet. Let's see what he does with Haslam.
He's very good in traffic too. This is the first of the endurance races that Hiscock's competed in, 7 of them, since the last Castrol 6 Hour 1 year ago. It's the first one that he hasn't won. And will not win, obviously. That's where his team leader went down in a rush of blood to the head. But Alan Hales is doing what racers know best, and that's racing and going just as hard as you can.
Oh, Ron Haslam almost off there. Did you see the way the bike swerved about as he's trying to catch the Dave Hiscock machine in front of him? That's the challenge in front of us right now. There he goes. The bike all out of control on the right of your screen there with the red leathers on. And that's Ron Haslam, who is riding this machine brilliantly, a machine that is ill-handling, to say the least. And Rocket Ron Haslam showing the talent that made him Formula One world champion last year.
Hiscock locks himself underneath Barry Vincent Andrew Thompson on 40, being followed through by Haslam on 2. Very heavy traffic among some very quick bikes there. And look at the way the riders rely on each other.
In spite of the crash that Alan Hales had, it's Dave Hiscock now in 8th position in the race, so the crash cost them 6 positions, as he comes up now to challenge Neil Shivers in 2nd slot, and it's this race on again between the 2 lead Suzukis.
Shivers will be most gratified by this because it was his decision to seek another partner for this year's 6 Hour after winning it last year with Alan Hales, and how wise that decision has been as he holds down here a most creditable 2nd place. And he saw, of course, shortly after his former race partner overtook him, he saw him come down.
Shivers, I would think, holding these other 2 bikes up a little bit here. Shivers has a very definite task in front of him, and that's to stay in 2nd place, hoping that something will happen to Wayne Gardner. He has no chance of catching him, so his duty very much is to place 2nd for Suzuki and be in a position to win should anything happen to bike 5. Meantime, bike 6 and 2 have nothing to win, nothing to lose, and they're out there having a lot of fun. But bike 1 at the moment certainly holding them up.
The son, of course, of Doug Shivers and brother of Doug Shivers Jr., his older brother, who ran himself in this race for a few years in 74. And in 75, they shared a bike and came 10th outright. Then he was 6th in 1976, 2nd with Jim Budd in 1977, won last year, 1979. So he's had a long and quite successful time in the Castrol 6 Hour.
Wayne Gardner in the lead, a model of consistency. On the last 4 laps, he's done a 59.2, a 59.7, a 59.5, and another 59.7. So Wayne Gardner well and truly locked into his own personal groove, and that's where he'll stay for the next 13 laps until the finish of this year's event.
And in the pits, I think that Peter Malloy will be saying to Wayne Gardner, hold that time. I don't want you going any faster. Just keep your concentration up. Don't try and race with the desperates who are behind you, who've got something to gain. You've got it made, and you have 10 minutes and 10 seconds before the end of the race and victory.
Rocket Ron Haslam getting most frustrated there, back there in the 3rd position in that dice. Edging up on the inside of bike 6, Dave Hiscock. And in fact through there, so Rocket Ron Haslam moves into 2nd position in that own little dice that they're having there, while Neil Shivers still maintains the lead of the dice and maintains 2nd place in the race. Haslam now looking for a way through Shivers. Will he take it in the braking area? Yes, he does. And Shivers glad to have the heat off him because he did not need those 2 bikes breathing down his neck. It wasn't what he was seeking, but at the same stage, when you're locked into your own groove, you don't back off and wave him through because that could unsettle your own personal psyche when you're trying to find a neat, smooth way around Amaru Park. Now Dave Hiscock, can he also find a way through the almost identical Suzuki of Neil Shivers?
Haslam Haslam with something to prove. The professional who did have egg on his face earlier today dropped the bike after not very many laps on it, following the Australian rider, Ken Blake, but who has redeemed his reputation well and truly. Look at him running away from Chivers and from Hiscock, and there are very few people around that are quicker than the New Zealander, 27 years old David Hiscock, on bike number 6 at the moment. In fact, he plans next year to go to Europe to get into production-based bikes, superbikes or Formula One, as Haslam does.
And there goes Hiscock through Neil Shivers, so now Neil again has the track all to himself.
Up above, the plane that said get on a winner with Suzuki now says congratulations, Suzuki.
Suzuki's timing a little bit off perhaps, because the Honda's well and truly in the lead, but perhaps they couldn't ring the plane to tell it not to come. So as Wayne Gardner rides around the circuit, the aircraft in the air says congratulations, Suzuki. Well, second isn't bad.
Haslam now dealing with a very real problem on these Hondas, that if he really banks it over as far as the bike can go in terms of ground clearance, he will roll off the edge of the tread of the tyre. And the next development undoubtedly will be tyres with a more rounded tread, more like the race type profile, that will let them crank the bike over to the limit of the frame and of the ground clearance. A quite exceptional production bike.
And Dave Hiscock really picking up Ron Haslam there, so Hiscock certainly isn't hanging about. He's taken the bait and he's out after Ron Haslam, because he too has a reputation to uphold.
Particularly as if he plans to go to Europe next year and wants to race against people over there, such as Ron Haslam. And so a bit of incentive for him here to demonstrate that he can stay with the tops from Europe. Plenty of racing still on and plenty of potential for things to go wrong. Sweeping down through this section, fourth gear, and would be 170, 180 kilometres an hour. Heavy brakes. Look at the bikes working as they're on maximum braking, and that's the most telling part of these bikes. If you ride them around Amaroo Park, or if you get pillioned around, as a few brave people have done, is the enormous braking forces, and then as you come out of the corners, the enormous acceleration. In third place at the moment, bike number 4, Dennis Neal, the man who's had a wretched run of Castrol 6 hours. He's never managed to win it. In third place at the moment, and that's a most creditable third, because a few hours ago he wasn't in the top 10, and he hates the rain, as he admitted earlier, and his co-rider Roger Hales doesn't like it much more. But they're bringing home a 1-3 for Honda. Suzuki lying second and fourth, and that fourth place is the leading 750 class bike. And then on bike 17 in fifth place is the Kawasaki, the highest placed Kawasaki number 17. But this is the style of perhaps the fastest, certainly I think the most determined man in Australian production bike racing, Dennis Neal. Fellow riders have on occasions accused him of even kicking them or pushing knees out, and saying how worried they are sometimes when they get close to Dennis Neal. But he certainly has an enormous amount of ability and determination. He broke 2 legs badly back in 1977, but has come back from that nasty experience with a vengeance.
57.8 seconds on Dennis Neal, 57.8 seconds, so he is flying. The outright production lap record is 56.6. Neal only a second and a bit over it right now. 5 minutes remaining in the Castrol 6-hour motorcycle race for 1980, the 11th Castrol. Bike 1 in second position, Neil Shivers on it.
And Wayne Gardner's time constant within a second over the last 10 laps. But Chivers' pace, this is the other heroic story, truly heroic story of the 6-hour, where John Pace put in all but 4 hours solo in streaming rain that taxed his physical and mental powers to the utmost, and didn't make an error.
This time last year, everyone said the Castrol 6-hour was over, that it couldn't be won by anyone else, and that nothing would happen. This time last year, Dennis Neal threw away second place on the penultimate lap. The pressure is right on.
And lying in first place, Wayne Gardner, and lying in second place, John Pace, were last year the joint winners on a Z650 Kawasaki of the 750 class as teammates.
318 laps covered to date by Wayne Gardner. The race record is 360 laps to Alan Hales and Neil Shivers last year. That's an average of 1 minute a lap, including pit stops, 59.5 seconds if you exclude them. So in fact, if Wayne Gardner covers another 4 laps to get him to 322 laps, he will not have covered as much distance as Brian Hindle and Clive Knight did to win the 1971 Castrol 6-hour.
And give Honda its other victory in the race, its only other victory. That started the whole superbike boom with the Japanese factories, and from that Honda 750, which was regarded as a very quick bike in those days, we've come to the ferocious speed of this Honda 1100, a very purpose-built motorbike that lots of people in Australia, as we look at the Suzuki that in some ways instigated that Honda challenge to it, that many people in Australia are waving money around trying to buy one of these Honda 1100s, and there just are not enough of them to go round for the number of people that want them.
2 laps between first and second, then another 2 laps back to third position, Dennis Neal. 180 seconds remaining in the Castrol 6-hour. Wayne Gardner's counting off every one.
319 laps covered. Malloy will be thrilled. Andrew Johnson, the Australian Unlimited champion this year.
Caps a beautiful year for him. He's won the Australian Unlimited Championship, and now the big one, the Castrol 6.
And the Australian Grand Prix at Bathurst Unlimited Grand Prix. But this is the one, funnily, that probably has less rider satisfaction, but in terms of the rider's career, far more potential for Andrew Johnson. The Dunlop Loop. Perhaps for the second last time, 320 laps completed. 1 minute, 40 seconds to go. And the flag for the finish will be shown before the Breville corner, between Breville corner and the stop corner, Winfield. So this is not going to be the lap. And it won't necessarily be shown to the race leader, because it's a 6-hour race, not a given distance race. So at exactly 4 p.m. the flag will come out. Keep it together, Wayne.
Careful, Wayne. He waves to the bike, says thank you very much indeed to Steve Brennan on the Honda 750 for letting me through. Now comes up on 35, Michael Bundy and John Banks on the Suzuki GSX 750 and goes easily through them. But every passing manoeuvre now is a potential disaster.
He may be lapping just too fast to finish the race this lap. He may be some few seconds too early. That'll depend on the official's timing, and he's slowing his laps. He's come from 59.5. Peter Malloy's to wake up, and he said, get it slower. And he's done a 60, and now he's done a 62.5, and he'll make it this lap. I think he'll back off sufficiently, but I don't know. And he's got 28 seconds to go. Honda corner for Wayne Gardner, 21 years old, rider from Wollongong. Supported by 23-year-old Victorian Andrew Johnson, who rode the Pitman's TZ 750 Yamaha this year so well. And will we get the flag? No, sir.
Yes,
sir. So, the finish with 322 laps completed of the 11th Castrol 6-hour race, and Wayne Gardner is jubilant, and so too will be Peter Malloy, and I might say he's exhausted also.
Wayne Gardner 2 laps ahead of the Suzuki GSX 1100 of Neil Shivers and John Pace. Then another 2 laps back to the Honda of Dennis Neal.
The funny thing is that the man who a moment ago could ride like a demon now will be so exhausted now that it's stopped, because the adrenaline switched off. And that man
Vera Jacobs from Castrol gives him the victory kiss. And there's and another one. That time from Andrew Johnson. Ah, yes.
That's
jubilation.
And here are the placings for this Castrol 6R.
Peter Malloy receiving the winner's laurels and the champagne for Wayne Gardner and Andrew Johnston. A magnificent win by the Mentor motorcycle team, the CB Honda 1100R. A great result. Wayne, if we could just have a word with you, what did you feel this morning when you saw that rain coming down?
Well, this is the first time I've ever raced production bikes in the rain. I've raced super bikes before and I won, so I thought we had a bit of a chance, and I really liked it. But after the first few laps, I was happy.
Getting covered in champagne here. Roger Hayes reckons you must have web feet.
Well, I hope so. It got me through.
Well, Andrew Johnson has been a magnificent year for you. The Unlimited production, Unlimited Grand Prix win in Perth, and now the Castrol 6R. You must be very happy.
I certainly am very happy. Oh, it's a ripper, but it takes a team effort. Mentor motorcycles have to be the best, and the team, the effort, and the mechanic, look, thank you all. And thanks, Wayne. Brilliant wet weather rider.
There's Wayne Gardner and Andrew Johnson, the winning team. Wayne, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Mentor Motorcycles for a start. Metzler, Pirelli, Peter Malloy, Malloy Engineering, Castrol, Belray, and everyone for coming, and the team. It's a team effort.
Well, congratulations to you both and to your team. And I hope that you've enjoyed our coverage, the Castrol 6R for 1980 on ABC Sport.
It is a nice bike to ride, isn't it?